All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we give you all the headlines from April the 21st. A lot going on in Ninerland. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Go get some brisket. Go get some brisket chili. Say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Krug sent you. Big fans of Pig and a Pickle. And of course, this video is also sponsored by LearnKey Upskill Academy, an online learning platform designed to get you job ready in 6 months or less. Whether you're interested in IT, cybersecurity, or another high demand field, they offer over 30 certification programs to help you take that next step in your professional career. With flexible online learning and industry recognized certifications, you can build the skills employers are looking for, all with the support of a US based student assistance. So don't wait to invest in your future. Click the link in the description of this video and visit upskill.learnkey.com to start today. And we'll tell you a little bit about our draft challenge in a bit. But first, let's talk a little bit about a bunch of stories going on in Ninerland. We could start with any number of them because there's a bunch of really interesting things to talk about. But we'll start with Brock Purdy because Brock Purdy contract extension is on everybody's mind. Where do things sit right now? Where do things sit currently? Is the deal going to get done? Has there been any progress made? I think a lot of 49er fans are asking the same questions, right? And the thing about this channel is we're not gonna sit there and just tell you the Niners are wrong left and right, but we're not going to sit there and praise them blindly either, like some will, endlessly. We're going to call it the way we see it, and we're going to call it right down the middle, and that's why we have a successful channel. So what is the latest? Purdy and the Niners signed a 4-year, $3.7 million deal after they drafted him in the 2022 draft, made him Mr. Irrelevant. Now his contract is up, and the Niners have made an offer. Purdy's camp hasn't accepted that offer. And according to Matt Mayoko, will not be accepting that offer. So that was interesting. And that was reported earlier this week. Now, tomorrow is the official start of OTAs phase number 1, but there's no field work there done. I would say if you said, what is the hard, fast deadline to make sure this gets done? Some would say it's tomorrow. I think it's that date in February or in May, for phase 3, when they actually hit the field for the full team post-draft with everybody there. It's not the mandatory, it's still voluntary, but that phase 3 of the OTAs when they hit the field, I think that's the spot that Brock wants to make sure that contract's done by then. Now, that sounds like there's some fear in Ninerland that it may not get done. Mike Silver reporting a number of interesting things. He says Purdy, Kittle, and Warner could all wind up skipping the voluntary activities tomorrow. As far as an update on Purdy's contract, Silver's not giving one, but Silver did say and report that there have been some progress on the Purdy talks. And he kind of opined that if Purdy shows up tomorrow down in Santa Clara, that could potentially mean that Shanahan or Kyle Strongen, I should say, the representative for Brock, and Parag Marate, most likely the Niners' chief negotiator in the contract talks, that they could potentially be close to a deal. So maybe it's an indicator tomorrow if Brock shows up in Santa Clara that the Niners and Purdy and his representative are close to a deal. But if not, Silver's suggesting that maybe that could suggest that there are significant obstacles still remaining in a path to a new contract extension for the Niners starting quarterback. So that's kind of where it stands. So I shouldn't say Silver didn't really report anything. He did. He said there'd been some progress on in the Purdy talks, and then kind of suggested, it's not wondering aloud, hey, if he shows up tomorrow, does that mean it's almost done? Probably. If he doesn't show up tomorrow, does that mean that there's significant obstacles and they may be a ways apart? That could be the case. But we're all reading tea leaves at this point without any sources. We will be speaking with John Lynch tomorrow in his pre-draft media, scrum. So we'll see what comes out of that tomorrow in Santa Clara. We'll have some more for you tomorrow. Also, Mike Silver reporting that Fred Warner and the Niners have yet to engage in substantive contract extension talks on that front, but that Warner is likely to report. So sounds like Warner's going to be there, despite the fact that they haven't even started talking to him about his deal. Kittle, who's in the final year of his this year in 2025 of his 5-year, $75 million deal, according to Silver, Kittle's more of a long shot to report. And Silver seemed to think that the two sides are likely far apart on a contract extension for Kittle. So that's the latest. It sounds like on the contract front. Um, but that's not all the notes today. There's lots and lots of notes. And by the way, the Purdy thing, it could be anything. It could be anything from literally they're at an impasse and Brock's agent's at 65 and the Niners are at 45 and nobody will bend and there's been no dialogue and no movement. I still will stay with my prediction. He gets 55. They meet in the middle. I think, it's real easy to envision the Niners offering 45. It's as a starting offer, and it's real easy to envision Brock's agent saying, hey, how about 65 as his opening salvo? And I think they'll eventually get together in the middle at $55 million a year. And I think the Niners would probably like it to be a 3-year deal, and it sounds like Purdy and his camp would like a longer-term deal. And I think the Niners will probably get their wish on that. They'll probably get a 3-year deal. My guess it'll be a 3-year deal for, as I said, right around 150, 160, 165 million, somewhere in there, with maybe 125 being guaranteed. Who knows? Maybe the whole thing will be guaranteed. Maybe that will be the trade-off for a shorter term deal, that it's all guaranteed. What's clear to me is that Jed and John and Kyle all appear to be and sound like they are all in on Brock Purdy. So if you're all in on Brock Purdy and you can get him on a short-term 3-year deal, you might guarantee all of it. So I think that's going to be the neighborhood the whole thing shakes out eventually when it does. I think that's where it's going to be. Now, there are a couple other Niner notes that I think are really interesting today. Fox Sports NFL insider Jordan Schultz tweeted out that the Niners did indeed have a pre-draft visit with Minnesota offensive tackle Arianti Ursary. The more I look at prospects, guys, the more I think this guy is going to be a Niner. I really do believe it. He's got everything you're looking for. One, I don't think they want to use the 11th pick in the draft on an offensive lineman. And with Ursary, you can get him in round 2. 2, I think they want an experienced player. And Ursary's a 5th-year senior. And this continues their theme from a year ago, where they got more polished players. They didn't draft, underclassmen and guys who were immature. They drafted guys who had played a lot of football. And they wanted more mature football players that were ready to contribute. And it worked for them last year. And it seems like something they could try to replicate a little bit this year as well. And Ursary fits that description, right? 5th-year senior. He's played a lot of football. They also like movement ability in their linemen, but they want bigger bodies. This guy's 6'6 and a quarter, 331 pounds. And he did it as a tackle. He was the left tackle for the Golden Gophers. He gave up 4 sacks in 3 seasons. But if you look at internally at some of his numbers, 90th percentile in his 40. His 40 time was 90th percentile. His broad jump was 87th percentile. So this is an athlete at 6'6", 330. And the only question I would have is, do you plug him in at right tackle for Colton McKivitz day one and move McKivitz to left guard, which is what I would do? Or do you put him at, he's played on the left side. Do you play him out of position at left guard next to Trent Williams? And for a year, maybe you got Trent and Ursary on the left side. It kind of depends what else you do in the draft, of course, but I think either would be exciting. But I like Arianti Ursary to the Niners in the 2nd round. Now, I think the Niners, would like to have multiple 2nd-round picks, and I think if they trade back in the 1st round, I think that's a possibility. So very interesting name, though, Arianti Ursary. If the Niners could get 2 2nd-round picks, I think that would be a really, really nice he would be a really nice pick for one of them. All right, who would be a really nice pick for the other one of them? Well, Probably a skill position guy, could be a defensive end. If they go defensive end in round one, it could be a defensive tackle. Um, but I thought it was interesting. I read an article this week how Brock Purdy recently discussed the future of Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, two wide receiver prospects who played at his alma mater at Iowa State for Matt Campbell, in an interview with Daniel Jeremiah. And I guess Purdy's rolling around talking football with Jeremiah in a car. And, obviously Brock is very excited about both, and they're exciting. They're both exciting prospects. Higgins is big and smooth, and Knoll is small and explosive. And they're both really good receivers and very productive receivers. And I think they're going to be good NFL receivers. But it was clear that Jalen Knoll was the one that really interested Brock. And Brock has memories of playing with Jalen Knoll when Jalen Knoll was a freshman. And Jalen Knoll was a slot receiver, and Brock Purdy obviously was the quarterback. And this is what Purdy had to say about Jalen Knoll. He says, he's a playmaker, man. And I guess when Purdy said this, he really lit up. He and the person who wrote this said Purdy lighting up like a guy who's watched, Knoll's tape more than once. He says, you get the ball in his hands and he's a speedster, returns kicks, breaks tackles, and makes plays for whoever he's playing for. So, it's interesting. I mean, to me, that's interesting. He said, then he went on to say, as a quarterback, that's the guy that I can trust in the heat of the moment, third downs and trying to convert. That's the guy I want to be on the field with, is a guy with that kind of mentality. And he's talking about Jalen Knoll. And the more I watch Knoll, the more I just think he's special. There's special traits there. And I know the Niners have talked about, Alec Manor from Stanford, who's big and strong, very athletic. I'm sure Lynch likes him quite a bit. I'm sure the Niners are going to consider the Stanford receiver on day 2. But you know what? If you could get that extra second round pick, because you got to go trenches, right? You got to go trenches in this draft. So Ursary definitely takes precedent over the receiver. Okay. But man, if you could trade back in round 1, still get a guy that you really want, and get that extra round 2 pick and get both Ursary and Jalen Knoll, I think that's the way to go. I really do. The more I think about this, the more I think that's the way to go. Get the big tackle and get Brock Purdy a dominant weapon so that Brandon Ayuk can heal on his own timeline. Let's not, is Brandon ready? Is Brandon ready? Is Brandon ready? This is Brandon's whole career hanging in the balance. Let's not rush him back. And right now it's set up for him to be rushed back. Let's be honest about this. They're going to need him. If they could get a guy like Jalen Knoll and he hits the ground running the way I think he potentially can, that would be nice. That would be nice. And you may be able to avoid the whole rushing Brandon Ayuk. All right. One of the things I want to do in this video is I want to show you guys. I'm going to share the screen because there's a lot of interesting things out there. People send me their mocks all the time, but somebody sent me this today and I love it. And I'll just keep whoever sent it to me private. I don't forget who it was, but this is an awesome mock draft. And this guy trades from 11 down to 28. I don't know if it's multiple trades, but ultimately he wound up with 3 extra picks. So the Niners have 11 picks. There's 14 picks here. This is his mock draft. Now, I've cooled a little bit on Walter Nolan over. I think I'd rather go with Kenneth Grant than Walter Nolan, but I like Walter Nolan a lot. And to me, this would almost be the dream draft. I mean, this would be a very popular draft if you could get this. Walter Nolan at 28. So you get the big defensive tackle, 3 technique right out of the chute. Then you go Landon Jackson, the jumbo defensive end for Arkansas. You put Jackson, who's very passionate about rushing the passer and big. You put him opposite Nick Bosa. Man, now you've added 2 really good players to your defensive line right out of the chute. And that's at 43. At 49, somehow you got the 49th pick. You're taking Jalen Knoll, who I just described, big play guy. Brock loves him. So now Purdy's thrilled. Now you've gotten 2 defensive linemen, and you've really helped your quarterback. But you're going to help him again with the next pick. You get Arianti Ursary at 60. Now you've got the big physical offensive lineman that can play guard or tackle, and he's going to play for a decade. Big Ten, physical, athletic. I mean, there's nothing not to like. Experienced, Ursary, very wide body. I mean, this guy $5 cab ride to get around this guy. I mean, he's huge. So you're 4 picks into this mock, and you went D tackle, D end, wide receiver, offensive line, and I think you go 4 for 4 there. Those are really exciting prospects. But this thing continues. The next pick at 75, they get Chris Paul Jr., who's a hyperactive linebacker who's, I think, would start day one next to Fred Warner. Then you get the press man corner at 81 from Vatek that Tony Pauline says the Niners really like. And I think at 81, that makes a lot of sense for Dorian Strong there. I don't know if he'll be there, but I really like the value there. Then you go Cam Scatabo. Now, I'm not a big Scatabo guy, Scatabo, whatever. But, you know, it'd be popular. It'll be popular. I mean, I like him as a player. I just like other backs more. But, I mean, very popular. I mean, that there would be a ton. You know how many Scatabo jerseys they would sell? And he would be a jack of all trades. I mean, I like other guys better, but I still like him. I mean, he's run, pass, catch, tough as hell, Sac State guy. Bzz, bzz. Sac State stinger. Stingers up for Big Cam. 113, Anthony Belton. Anthony Belton and Ursary in the same draft. Now we're cooking with grease. Now you could put Belton at right tackle and Ursary at left guard. And now you could potentially say, hey, Colton, let's see if you can beat out Brendel. Maybe you'll be the starting center. I mean, you go 6'6", 345 Anthony Belton and 6'6", 330-pound Ursary. And as far as I'm concerned, that is awesome. That's Mike Iupati and Anthony Davis all over again. I mean, just those picks alone in this draft together have me really excited. Ursary and Belton in the same draft. But it doesn't end there. It goes on from there. Q Robinson, who's an excellent athlete from Bama at 119. Great athlete off the edge. Monheim from SC. You're going offensive line again. I think this is overkill, to be completely honest. I think I would go a different pick here. Give me a corner, maybe another running back right here. RJ Harvey. Give me maybe a flyer on a quarterback here. Maybe I'd go Riley Leonard right here at 142. But look at the last 4 picks. Aeneas Peebles, awesome pass rushing interior player, 6 feet, 290, super fast. Willie Lampkin, clearly my favorite player in the whole draft. And he's Mel Kiper's favorite player in the draft. Now I feel really good. I saw that. I was like, Mel put out his favorites. I'm like, dude, that's my favorite, Mel. So Mel and I love Willie Lampkin. And by the way, Matt Miller, also from ESPN, called him his draft crush. Get Willie Lampkin. Please, John Lynch, get Willie Lampkin. If the Niners come out of this draft with Ursary, Belton, Monheim, and Willie Lampkin, they don't have any more offensive line problems. You got your center. You got your right tackle. You've really got your tackles of the future because, eventually you'll play Belton and Ursary at tackles, and maybe Monheim steps in at guard, Lampkin at center. I mean, I love Willie Lampkin. Love him. Go watch his film. You'll love him too. Then now I got to think the guy who sent this to me has been listening to me because he's throwing some of my guys back at me. I love this receiver from Illinois at pick 249, Zachary Franklin. Nobody's saying anything about this receiver. This guy played with Burford at Texas San Antonio and Sincere McCormick, and then transferred to Illinois. And he's just smooth. He's not a burner, but he's a ready to play receiver who's going to step in right away and play right away. I mean, like, you're going to see this guy perform and produce in the preseason, and then the season's going to start, and he's going to perform and produce in the season. And he's an undrafted free agent who floated around at, I think, 3 different schools. Zachary Franklin, 6'1", 195, but he's smooth. smooth into the break, smooth out of the break, really slithery, great ball skills, unbelievable ball skills. I mean, as I said, this guy's going to play like day one. There's going to be people walking around going, man, Zachary Franklin, that guy's good. And then pick 252. I would go Eugene Asante or Chandler Martin here, but I like the concept of going linebacker on day 3 late. And Kane Madrano is a burning fast linebacker from UCLA. So somebody just sent me this out of the blue, and I just had to highlight this mock draft. This is a phenomenal mock draft, 14-player mock draft. You get your defensive tackle and defensive end up front. You get your big play star and Jalen Knoll. You get a hyperactive linebacker and Chris Paul up front. You get Kane Madrano, a speedy linebacker on the back end. You get major offensive line reinforcements, and you still get Aeneas Peebles on day 3 and Cam Scattaboo. I mean, it's just an awesome draft. This would be an amazing draft, an absolutely amazing draft. I would love to see this. This would be so exciting. All right. That's not all of the stories in Ninerland. There's more than that. Let's go through a few others. One of the things I saw today on Twitter coming out of Detroit's camp, there's speculation is coming out of Detroit is Detroit might trade Jamison Williams, their wide receiver, because they're trying to contemplate whether or not to pick up his 5th-year option. He was the 12th pick overall in the 2022 draft. And he's been at the center of a lot of trade rumors, according to NFL insiders. It looks like they're just trying to move on. Maybe the Patriots have some interest. I think this is an incredibly exciting player. Now, the 49ers need a receiver. What kind of receiver do they need? I think they need a couple of receivers, because you just lost Debo and Ayuk. So I think you need a couple receivers. I don't think it's crazy to think that they need a couple receivers. They need a guy like Zachary Franklin who's just going to catch everything all over the field. And they need a big play guy, and Jalen Noel could be that guy. But man, they also, and Noel's a burner too. He's got great speed. But if you're saying what is the complementary piece that would really open things up, it's the burner. And that's what Jamison Williams is. He's a vertical receiver. Now, he didn't do much at Ohio State, and then he went to Bama, and he's had some injuries in the NFL. He's 6'1 and a half, 180 pounds. He's really thin kid. He's from St. Louis, Missouri. I've always loved this kid. This kid was a great player at Cardinal Ritter College Prep High School. He scored 22 touchdowns his final year there. He also broke Ezekiel Elliott's state record in the 300-meter hurdles. He signed with Ohio State out of high school and then transferred to Bama. And he suffered an ACL tear against Georgia in the national championship game, and that kind of derailed him. So he's had some injuries, but we're talking about an electric long speed burner who in the playoff game against the Niners made a real big play in the first half. This guy was incredible a couple of years ago, in college. FBS 11 touchdowns of 30 plus yards in 2021. I mean, this guy's just your ultimate yak bomb deep threat monster. I mean, this guy's got crazy speed, big play guy. And if you've got all the underneath stuff taken care of, you can dump it in the flat to McCaffrey. You can throw it to JJ, and he's going to hold on underneath. You can throw it to Pearsall and little stop routes and little rub routes and, everything within 10, 12 yards of the line of scrimmage. That's fine. But you got to have somebody there who gets vertical, somebody who could threaten the big play. And Jamison Williams could do it. So I don't know. I mean, are the Lions interested in dealing with the Niners? Probably not. But one thing that Matt Mayoko said to me when we did our draft show over the weekend is don't discount the Niners trading for some vets. Michael Mayer's in Las Vegas. He would be a really nice 49er, the former Notre Dame tight end. Bryce Huff is in Philadelphia. I could very well see the Eagles trading Bryce Huff to the 49ers. Dallas Goedert's going to be traded by the Eagles. I mean, Eagles are going to have a bunch of veterans that they're shopping. And now we're hearing Jamison Williams is available. And, I know the Niners have cap problems, and this guy's, probably going to want some kind of an extension. But, man, that is the type receiver that the 49ers um, that's a difference maker. That's an equation changer. That's a space creator. There's the guy that can take the top off the defense. There's the guy that makes everybody honor the vertical. And I think, he's had some injuries. I think he's getting ready to play. I would guess that the next 3 years will be the best 3 years of Jameson Williams' career. And whoever gets him next is going to get the best of him. And he is a game-changing player. He's a game breaker. He's got game-breaking speed. So if the Niners could throw a day 3 pick at the Lions for a guy like Jameson Williams, just another name to remember. Now, Adam Schefter had a report today that was interesting as well. He said the 49ers are among the teams trying to move back in the first round. Here is the quote. He says, on the other side of things, the Steelers at 21 are among the teams interested in moving back from their first round slot. The list also includes the Jaguars at 5, the Panthers at 8, the 49ers at 11, the Falcons at 15, the Seahawks at 18, the Buccaneers at 19, and the Vikings at 24. All those teams would like to trade back. That's what he's reporting, but he's also saying that there aren't a lot of teams that want to trade up. Now, that could change when the clock starts ticking. Only Denver right now is kind of on the record as wanting to trade up. Kansas City as well, but Kansas City is at the very end of the first round. So the 49ers would like to trade back. Why? Because I think they would like Jalen Noel and Arianti Ursary in round 2. And if you trade back, and you can get Walter Nolan at 25, or you can get Kenneth Grant at 25, or you can get Derek Harmon at 25 or something like that. Or maybe you can get a defensive end you want in the 20s. Get that extra second-round pick. You may be able to draft a starter and maybe a franchise-altering player. But that was interesting from Schefter. He says there's a bunch. The Niners are among a group of teams that are trying to trade back. And we'll see what they're able to do, according to Schefter. Albert Breer had a kind of an interesting thing today as well. Breer is suggesting the Niners could take a swing on a D lineman. He's saying that Walter Nolan, he said, Walter Nolan may go higher than you think. Some teams believe he projects better to the NFL than Graham. The character entitlement question is what you have to get past. But if you have solid infrastructure as well as a locker room and a defensive line room, the payoff could be big. So if the 49ers are willing to take a swing, and as far as the character concerns, multiple scouts, according to Jeremy Fowler, have maturity concerns. There are several NFL scouting reports that reflect Nolan's history of walking off the practice field mid-season due to frustration. Opinions of his team interviews are varied. One NFL personnel executive said Nolan came across as someone who wants to improve and shed bad habits. The Niners are fortunate here. They got a good organization. They got a good room. They got guys who play hard. They got a coach they really like in Chris Kasarik, and they've got infrastructure there. So I don't think, I don't think they could have to stay away from a Walter Nolan because they can't handle it. I think they can handle it. Now, Matt Barrows has predicted all 11 draft picks as well. Matt, of course, from The Athletic, and he's got the Niners taking Mikael Williams at number 11. It's interesting because Mikael Williams, a lot of people think is the perfect fit for the 49ers. I personally don't. But I saw Todd McShay say that he felt like 13 was the highest Mikael Williams would go. The other thing I saw is that Mikael Williams was slated to go to Green Bay and to go to the draft, and now has said he's not going to go to the draft, which tells me he's probably sliding. I would say Mikael Williams probably goes later, maybe later than 11. Now, if the Niners trade back, maybe they could get him in a trade back situation, but at 11, I think that's probably too rich. I think that there's probably better players there. But Matt's mock is out, and Matt's sharp as heck. And I think his mock probably contains the most players that eventually could be 49ers. He's got, as I said, Mikael Williams in round 1, Tyleik Williams from Ohio State, who's an excellent run defender as a defensive tackle, and the Niners have to stop the run. He's got Tyleik Williams coming to the Niners at 43, Anthony Belton at 75. I think that's a great fit, great scheme fit. The Niners run the outside zone. He ran the zone offense at NC State. He's familiar with it. Chris Paul was Matt's draft crush, and a lot of people compare him to Dre Greenlaw. The thing about Chris Paul that's so great is the game means so much to him. Aeneas Peebles is a great mix for the Niners. I think the Niners like him quite a bit. Elijah Roberts is another guy from SMU, 295 pounds. Is he an end? Is he a tackle? He's just a great rusher. Bashul Tutin makes sense because of the speed, 4.32 speed. Shanahan loves speed. Kobe Bryant, the Niners like feisty corners, and Kobe Bryant is a feisty corner. And then Jackson Hawes is interesting because the Niners, want a tight end who's a two-way player, and he showed that he's a blocker and he's developing as a receiver. And he definitely has the brain horsepower. The guy went to Yale before finishing up at G-Tech. I think Hawes is going to be a steal in the 7th round. And then he finishes with Kane Madrano from UCLA, who's a linebacker with a ton of speed. Makes a lot of sense. And the Niners, I think, do need to get 2 linebackers in this draft. And then he finishes with Ricky White. And I think that's an interesting one because Ricky White is a really underrated player from UNLV. He also blocked 4 punts this year. I mean, think about it this way. If you had a backup receiver that played special teams and he blocked 2 punts over the course of the year, you'd be like, oh, he's awesome. This guy blocked 4. There was no team in the FBS that blocked as many punts as Ricky White. So he's obviously got a knack to do it. And that right there, he'd be a guy I'd be very, very interested in because of that skill. That to me is a guy you'd be very interested in just because he might be able to impact things. Also, the 49ers worked out a guy today. Justin Mello of the Draft Network reports the Niners held a virtual meeting with Duke wide receiver Eli Pancall. And he's interesting because he's 6'2", 205 pounds. He ran 4.33, and he had 23 reps of 225. I mean, that is big and strong right there and fast. 4.33 and 23 reps, 36-inch vertical, 10.3 broad jump, 6.88 3-cone. Any 3-cone sub-7 is great. 4.20 in the short shuttle is blistering. Had a virtual meeting with the 49ers. Interesting. That's a blazing 40 time, 4.33. And the 36-inch vertical, that 40 time would have ranked 3rd among wideouts at the combine. So this guy missed the 23 season with a lower body injury, but he bounced back in 24. He had a strong year, 60 catches, 798 yards, 9 touchdowns across 13 games. So he won the ACC's Brian Piccolo Award given to the conference comeback player of the year. So that's cool. Niners have been obviously eyeing an additional receiver because of losing Debo and the injury to Ayuk. But remember that name, Pancol. Fast and athletic sleeper, Eli Pancol from Duke. So that is an interesting name to keep track of. Eli Pancol. I will say this, the Niners also have shown an interest in Jordan Watkins as maybe a day 3 receiver. And Watkins is really intriguing. He absolutely is. He's got 4.37 speed. He had some amazing days earlier this year where he was just really, really dominating. So that's another guy to keep your eye on. All right, that does it for the video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to LearnKey's Upskill Academy for sponsoring the video. And also, we should mention to you guys that we have our NFL draft contest. That's right. All you got to do, it's totally free to enter. Just fill out the Google form link below in the description and your predictions for picks 1 through 12. And the entries will be graded on how many pick-to-player matches you get. First place gets a $100 Visa gift card. Second place gets a $50 Visa gift card. Plus, both winners get to come on the Krug Show during draft weekend. So hit the link, lock in your draft board, and let's see who really knows their draft. Good luck, and big thanks to LearnKey Upskill Academy for sponsoring this Krug Show and the contest. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.